Welcome to Brit Sci-Fi Online from the National Space Centre, a celebration of British science fiction. And a huge thanks to all our guests and supporting groups who have given themselves freely to support the event, all the fans and the National Space Centre charity. The National Space Centre itself is looking forward to welcoming visitors to the centre soon, so do make sure you check out the website as booking in advance will be essential. Well, when I was young, there was two shows that you just had to watch. One was the inevitable Doctor Who, but the other was a more revolutionary show, starring young kids just like me and my mates at school. It was the Tomorrow People, a group of teenagers with psychic and other paranormal abilities who use these special gifts to battle evil. Today I'm talking to two of the stars of the show, Peter Vaughan Clarke, who played the young Stephen, and Nicholas Young, who played the father figure of the group, Jon. Hello Nicholas, hello Peter, how are you?
Hi, Peter. We're fine, actually. You sound fine anyway.
Good, very well.
Good. Well, lovely to talk to you today, and relive some of my childhood as well. So, I'm going to ask quite a few questions. Some of them are from the fans. Well, most of them actually are from the fans. So I'm going to kick straight off with one from Julie on Facebook, who said, there are still lots of Tomorrow People fans around today. Why do you think the show lives on with the fans?
What a good question. Sure, I'm the one that should be answering that one. It's the fans themselves probably who can only answer that. I think we all love the shows that we saw as children. I'm the same. I like watching the Talking Pictures channel because it shows a lot of stuff from the 50s and 60s. It sort of gives you a warm glow of feeling of security, watching things that you enjoyed and that inspired you as children. And as we grow up, I don't think that really goes away.
Yeah. And Peter, what do you think? What would you attribute the longevity of the show with its fans?
Well, I sort of remember that Doctor Who was on a Saturday at 6:30. It was aimed towards adults, and the Tomorrow People were children. It was aimed at children.
Yeah. So I think that was a big difference because you used to come home from school and then sit down and watch the Tomorrow People and make sure you didn't miss it. So and I think it became part of that kind of routine almost of the week. It became part of that and part of your childhood.
But also there was only 3 channels.
Yes, of course. Yes, which a lot of people these days can't imagine.
No, and also, because it was only on once a week, they showed half of the previous week's episode to remind you what happened.
Well, that's something which I suppose was quite useful, although it gets a bit boring in the American. It gets a bit boring in the American shows where they do it every set of adverts, but
Yes.
So David from Facebook wants to ask both of you: Have you watched it back in recent years, and how do you feel about the show these days?
I imagine, Peter, you probably play it back on. It's probably on permanent loop, isn't it?
I do have box sets, but I listen to the comments.
Okay, have I seen it recently?
Yeah.
I'm not particularly. I mean, I've got the box set, so if I felt inspired or exceedingly depressed, I might put it in. It's available on BritBox, so they tell me, so people can watch it whenever they want.
Yeah.
Not that I subscribe. I do revisit it occasionally, or I might watch one episode or something just for a bit of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Peter, when was the last time you watched it? Can you remember?
Was that this morning?
A long time ago.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Keith, we did the commentaries, and we sat in the studio, me, Nick, and the others, and watched the whole lot. And I think that did me.
Yeah, the point is we have to watch the whole lot over a weekend, so that's God knows how many hours of television, 48 hours or something.
Yeah.
Non-stop. So it did sort of teach you a lesson, didn't it?
So Paul on Facebook asks, did the plots ever confuse you? Did you know where you were in the program at any point or not? Or...
All the time.
Yeah. So
some were very clear, some were very obscure, and some were downright you felt you wanted to die of boredom, didn't you, really? That one, the one that Roger didn't write, which was something to do with infinity, it was awful. Do you remember that one? No, sorry, I beg your pardon, you've gone by then. Sorry, literally throughout this discussion. Yeah, there was one that was particularly tedious, that we were, I don't know what it was all about, quite honestly. But most of them were pretty good, and I think we understood what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, with any science fiction show, there's always an element of, I'm really not sure what I'm saying now, but we'll go with it.
This was moving on to the one I did in America. The difficulty with remembering lines. If it's modern English, I don't have a problem with it. But when they give you stuff that's gobbledygook that makes absolutely no sense, it's extremely difficult to get yourself to remember what you're actually saying because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. There's always that, as I say, there's always that moment in lots of science fiction where that happens. So
But science fiction is not fiction, of course. It obeys certain rules. That's the point. So you can't bluff your way through it any more than you can bluff your way through Shakespeare if you try.
Yeah. True. So Jacqueline on Facebook is asking if Tim could teleport or jaunt you anywhere, where would you like to go? Obviously, if there wasn't a pandemic on. So Nicholas, if you could go anywhere at all, where would you go?
Well, she doesn't specify whether she means on this Earth or throughout the universe.
I think anywhere.
Okay, well, if she means the whole universe, I'd love to visit some planet somewhere that has life or something to go and have a look at. Because let's be honest, we see Mars on the TV every night. You see Mars once, you've seen it forever.
Well, I'm not sure some of the people here at the Space Centre would agree, but I like your idea of going to another planet to find life. I think that's really a nice answer.
Otherwise, Southend-on-Sea.
And Peter, where would you go if you had the chance to go anywhere?
Well, if it was a planet, I'd like to go to Saturn.
All right, yeah.
Because I've always been fascinated with the rings.
Yeah.
But on this Earth, I'd like to go to New York.
All right.
Which I've never been to.
No. Well, that's actually fairly doable, and you might not need Tim for that one at some point soon.
Anyway. With Tim, well, it'd be handy.
You could get there
from my
instantly.
house to my theatre. That would be really handy.
Yeah, and of course you'd avoid all that stuff about passport control and everything because you just appear there.
Yeah,
that would be much easier.
Yeah,
much
exactly.
easier. Yeah. So Mark on Facebook was saying he loved the theme tune and he can still remember it today. And in fact, I was watching the episode the other day and I was thinking, oh, this is, it brings back so much memories. That theme tune. I think Dudley Simpson, I think it was.
That's correct.
But the graphics were very. Mark is saying the graphics were too much to watch. I quite like them myself. Both the music and the graphics were created by, I think, people who were involved in Doctor Who at some point or another. Was the Tomorrow People influenced by Doctor Who in other ways, do you think?
Well, the first director of the Tomorrow People was Paul Bernard, who had previously done Doctor Who. So he was employed to bring elements of the Doctor Who show to the Tomorrow People.
Okay. Cool. Where are we at? Yes, now, Deborah.
May I just say, if you want to hear the theme tune played by my good self, it is on YouTube. Seriously,
Okay.
it is.
Okay, I'll check that out. I will check that out.
It was Dudley Simpson, wasn't it?
It was, yes. Yeah. Now, Deborah on Facebook says, did you realise you would become heartthrobs? I remember John in his skimpy swimming shorts.
I had no doubt that we would become heartthrobs. I don't know about Peter.
I remember that scene very well. It's etched in me.
Yes, it's one scene never forgotten.
So
Much.
did you have fans mobbing you anywhere or chasing you around at that time?
I did a bit.
Yeah.
Just picking up on the general comment, we expect to be heartthrobs. I suppose we did, really, didn't we, Peter? I mean, it was really going to be a successful show, and it had a very strong following from a very early stage. So, put it this way, it didn't come as any surprise that one or two people looked on us as heartthrobs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, I looked at it when they started putting us in the TV Times and Little Magazine and all that.
When they started
You'd see
stalking.
our pictures on the walls in people's bedrooms and stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Excellent. Was there a comic book series as well? I think, wasn't there? If I remember
Yes,
rightly.
there was. In Lucky magazine, and there was an annual, which, despite its name, came out only once.
So, John on Facebook was asking, you've both gone back to the roles for Big Finish Audio. And what was it like going back to the roles on audio after a period?
Well, I'll answer this before.
Yeah, go on.
I'll answer this before Nick. Now, Nick's a very good actor, and I'm not. But so I tried to pick my voice at the higher level when I was 14 years old, and it didn't work. Mm-hmm. But Nick's much better.
Oh,
it's gone.
Sorry, Nicholas. I lost you then for a second. Can you just repeat what you were saying, and we'll edit that bit out?
Yeah, for me, it was quite peculiar because I've only been there 2 or 3 minutes, and I felt like it was back in the 1970s. It felt perfectly natural. It just came back completely automatically to me. And Peter underestimates himself. Rare to do that, but he did on this occasion. He was very good. I will take the credit for suggesting to the producer, because initially it was just me, and I said, "This is ridiculous. Why don't you bring the whole cast back? We can just do some scripts relating to the original series." So one by one, I think it was all back. I think it did Elizabeth do one, and Mike Holloway. Is that his name? I can't remember his name now. Mike Holloway. That's it. Yes. Mike Holloway. He appeared in it, didn't he?
Yeah. Cool.
Sometime in the late. No, no. Edit that bit out.
Okay. I will.
Do you trust this guy?
I would. Michael on Facebook would like to know, did you get to keep anything from the show? He's asking whether you kept the jaunting belt.
You mean steal anything from the show?
I didn't say that.
No, but I think Peter did. John was a man of integrity. I can't speak for the others.
No, I was given props. Remember the Sphinx one with Ali Bongo?
Yes.
They gave me the whole statue of that me.
Yes, but that's right. It was given to you, wasn't it?
They did. How could I walk out of 10's television with a 6 foot
with a coffin under your arm? Yes.
Surely you just jaunt out. I mean, really.
Yeah, of course. That's how I did it.
Or drive out through the car park.
Getting past security in the car park was really difficult. Difficult getting in, never mind out.
Yeah.
Jane on Facebook asks, you always look really fashionable. Did you get any say in your outfits, and did you ever get to take them home?
Yes, we used to go shopping. We used to go shopping, and I would pick pretty much what I wanted, which in those days, I mean, it's a bit like Roger Moore playing James Bond. At the time, it looked very cool. Now they look ridiculous with the lapels out here and flares that wide. But, you know, for the day, yeah, you're right, they were very trendy.
Yeah. We used to go to Richmond a lot and go shopping in Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
Not me, I used to go to Soho.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Nicholas.
I said I used to go to Soho, much more trendy than Richmond.
No, I did. That was one of the things that I remember about the show distinctly, was the costumes were very, for the time, the costumes were very kind of what you call trendy in those days.
Yeah,
trendy and hip. And and looking back now, that's what dates the show the most, I think, is probably the costumes. You know, you look back and you say, yeah, that's definitely 70s, but everything else about the show, I think, has aged very well for its time.
Well, in all seriousness, it's like Sean Connery playing Bond, he had a suit in 1962. He could walk through the door now and you wouldn't think it was old-fashioned at all.
No.
Whereas Roger Moore went for the extremes of the 1970s, and of course they know it ridiculous.
Yeah. So now, one of the things that I think any show stands and falls on is the stories, and I think you can get away with almost no budget at all. Like when you go on stage in a play and there's no props, no set, anything, if the story is good. So, do you have a favourite story from the show? Stephen asks on Facebook. He loved the Slaves of Jedekiah. Was there a favourite story?
Slaves of Jedekiah.
You remember that one with all the 4 boys tied up in chains?
Yeah, there was. That was in the first series, wasn't it?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
My favourites were the ones that made good sense. The one about Hitler was a good one. Blue and Green was a good one. Living Skins was a good story because they were all believable. The ones that towards the end that went around the galaxy and you saw strange creatures from foreign parts, I didn't enjoy this very much.
Yeah. Peter, did you have a favourite one?
Well, it depends if your favourite I enjoyed making was A Man for Emily with Peter Davidson, but that was probably the worst. But yeah, they were all good. The first 12 episodes, I really liked them all.
Yeah, cool. Now, the Helen on Facebook was saying the Tomorrow People often covered really dark subjects. You mentioned Hitler there and covered Hitler and the Nazis. How suitable do you think it was for children at the time?
Any comments on that, David?
I think it was okay for a lot of children because when we were breaking out and to become a tomorrow person, it could have been read into so many other things like I'm gay and so I think the children just sort of like lapped it up.
Yeah, we were talking to we were very lucky and privileged to talk to the lovely Joanna Lumley the other day about Sapphire and Steel, which again was kind of that time, and they were very dark stories. Some of them very, very dark stories. So I think.
Are you suggesting it's not a privilege to speak to us?
Not at all. Not at all.
Thank you. How much do you want to keep away from children? I mean, for instance, the story about Adolf Hitler. I'm not sure how many children would have known who Hitler was, particularly. I mean, I have a vague impression of who he was.
Yeah.
So I don't. On the other hand, why not introduce children to fairly straightforward concepts, even if they're a bit dark at an early age? You can't underestimate children. I think giving them incredibly childish stories is not helpful to anybody, quite honestly.
No, I think one of the things about the Tomorrow People was it wasn't. I mean, I think the whole thing was set up so it wasn't patronising to kids. I think that was the whole, one of the whole things that made it really good and popular amongst kids of the time was because it didn't talk down to us and it starred children. It starred people of our own age. So I think that was one of the things that made it kind of relatable. And
what Peter was talking about, and he said. Breaking out, which was the phase when you first realised you might have Tomorrow People powers.
Yeah. A
lot of people said to me they found that very helpful because it mirrored their own journey into puberty, if you like. In other words, changes were going on in their bodies, which they didn't understand and were unfamiliar and uncomfortable with. Those that were bullied, they could imagine they'd got these wonderful powers. I think it gave a lot of people confidence and strength, which otherwise they might not have had.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. I think that's it was kind of very relatable about what kids were going through at the time. So cool, and I think again we talk about dark subjects. I mean, if you look at fairy tales that you tell very young kids, some of those have very dark subjects.
So they're dark for a reason. They were told to children in the 1800s to beware of strange men that might come up and talk with them, or rather than just put a bauble like that, they would dress it up some wicked ogre or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But the message was still there. don't talk to strange men, don't go off into the woods or whatever it is. So it was more subtle, perhaps, than Tomorrow People.
Now, Diane on Facebook, there's a question for you, Nick. You were in all 68 episodes of this show. How did it change, and did you have a say in how it developed?
Well, Roger always talks to me as if I was the sort of semi-co-producer, and it's a slight exaggeration. But I did give ideas, particularly if I felt it wasn't going in the right direction. Some of the episodes were, getting back to what we were saying before, rather childish. As I said, the later ones, which got involved with the galactic trig and all sorts of weird creatures, and the one with puppets in was really very silly indeed. And it's difficult for an actor to work in those sort of shows because you feel uncomfortable. It's very difficult for you to give an even passable performance when silly things are going on. He wrote too many, and I think he would accept that. He had some brilliant ideas. He wasn't able to come up with 68 episodes worth, which is why he gave one story to another writer, and that's the one that I found incredibly boring. So towards the end, it probably ended when it should have, which is all I would say, because I think he'd run out of ideas.
Yeah, I think it's tremendously difficult when one person is running, is writing everything. I mean, in America these days, you get TV shows are produced by like a whole, football team's worth of writers, all sitting in one room writing. So I think it's a testament to the creativity of that particular period where you often got one person, virtually responsible for the entire show. So yeah.
Well, your point that you just made, I just expand on that. I said this to you about American comedy shows. The actual time of the show is usually about a little over 20 minutes. And if you've got a team of a dozen writers, they've only got to come up with one joke each, and it's done and dusted. Yeah.
I mean, I funnily enough, I do a bit of comedy writing, and it's so much easier when you've got about a dozen people in the same room coming up with it, bouncing ideas off each other as well. So another question, a question from Robert on Facebook. Obviously, it was, as we discussed, it was a program about teenagers, and but you must have been still at school while filming the show. So what was it like coping with both schoolwork and filming and working on set?
I think this is one for Peter, because he was still at school. You were still skipping school, weren't you, Peter?
Yeah, because you were the older one, weren't you, Nicholas? So.
No, I was. I'd left school because I was at driving school, and I was old enough to leave.
Okay. So
without a chaperone. I remember not going to school.
Yeah. So how old were you at the time?
15.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was I can't remember how old I was, but somewhere in my early 20s.
Yeah, because you were like the father figure of the group, really.
Yeah, mind you, that said, I left school at probably 16. I went to Corona Stage School, and half the day was taken up with academic lessons, and the other half was dancing, singing, voice production, and all that sort of rubbish. My education effectively ended certainly at 16, I would say. Cool. Not that you would ever guess that, but anyway.
So Mark on Facebook is asking, and this is probably we probably talked a little bit about this previously, but what was it like to be two leads in a show so young in your lives? How did it change your lives? And were you an overnight success and getting mobbed in the street? I think we talked a little bit about that, but what was it like? How did it change your lives being in the show?
Well, I can speak about Nick, because Nick was always the lead, and we were the kind of supporting acts. I mean, I always think, and I still do, Nick was the star of it, and we hang on to his shirt.
Does he owe you a fiver or something? Is that what it is?
It's true.
I had acted with some superb actors before I appeared in the Tomorrow People, and never after. No, there's some really good people in my career before. I did have a career before the Tomorrow People, which most people are not familiar with. With me and upstairs, downstairs.
Very nice.
So I worked with some really top actors. And I'm afraid you make a decision as an actor if you're not privately funded. Are you going to stay with the show for 68 episodes, or are you going to leave at the end of the first 13 and do something else? And most people who leave long-running series, you never hear from them again. So I think it was a decision I made to stick with it, but it is a shame because before Tomorrow People, my career was developing quite well, and after it, well, what can I say?
Yeah, that is the problem. I mean, there's the good aspect of being in a long running show, which gives you some kind of security as an actor, I'm sure. But then there's obviously that tends to then end up typecasting you, or you become in some ways too well known to cast in something else. It's a weird one. So Peter, here we go. Here's a question from Sharon, who says she was in love with Stephen and was heartbroken when he didn't come back. Was there a reason why you left the show?
I basically grew up, and Mike Holloway came on to Stephen, and it was inevitable that I had to go.
Yeah.
They didn't really do it in a very nice way, but it's one of those things with. Do you agree that, Nick?
I think the problem with Roger's concept in the first place was that he wrote 13 episodes, and I don't think he thought beyond that. As soon as you get into second, third, fourth, and fifth series, every teenager is going to become a Tomorrow People because that's the premise of the program. And as people grow up and move on as to young adults, it's no longer appropriate to have it in the show. I got away with it because, as you say, I was the father figure. Same with the computer Tim. We were dangerous, dare I say. But the young teenagers, what they got 15, 16, 17, it became very difficult. So there needed to be an introduction of some new flesh, so to speak.
Yeah, I think there's always the pressure on a show that runs for more than 2 or 3 series to kind of change it up every so often. So now another question. This is again about casting, really. But Richard on Facebook was saying he always thought that Tomorrow People was a fantastic reflection of diversity. Do you think it was a conscious decision when casting?
Yeah, it was, definitely. No, it was. I mean, Roger, I think it was very unfashionable in those days. He decided that he would have somebody from virtually every race. He brought me in to give it a bit of class, and Peter Vaughan Clarke for other reasons. There was black, there was Chinese, there was I don't think you've got to be so careful what you say nowadays. Are we still allowed to say gypsy? Traveller, whatever. Yeah, it was deliberate, absolutely deliberate, and brilliant, and that's why it sold to 55 countries around the world. It was Thames Television's biggest overseas seller, but never than Mrs. Simpson. I think that answers the question pretty comprehensively. Yeah.
I did read, actually. I have a copy of this wonderful book called Jaunt, which is the unofficial guide to the Tomorrow People, written by Andy Davidson. Which is, if you're into the Tomorrow People and like the show, I'd thoroughly recommend it because it's goes into things in quite some detail. And there was an interview in there where I think Roger was saying it was he absolutely wanted to do the show that way, and almost insisted that it get done that way.
Well, it's brilliant because it attracts. It was something for everyone, isn't it? That's the point.
Yeah.
But this was done at a time in the early 70s where there wasn't this obsession with multi-ethnic casting for whatever political reason. But he did it in a way that you wouldn't know it was deliberate. Particularly, everybody in it was very good at playing their role, and as I say, it gave everybody a stake in the program.
Yeah, it's funny actually. Talking about how good the actors were. Malika and I were chatting the other day about young actors and child actors, and how generally in most things they're the ones that really spoil it because they're not usually, there's just something jarring about them. But the Tomorrow People, it was all excellent, I have to say, and in particular we were being very very complimentary about Peter, actually, to be honest. But we thought that
really?
we thought all the actors in it were very good. Because, as I say, normally when you watch something, it's the children in it that you go, oh, but no.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah, of course you can.
American children are brilliant. You never get a bad American child. You just don't. They're so natural and relaxed in front of the camera. The English children on the whole are self-conscious.
Yeah.
And you're quite right. They do tend to ruin everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So we talked a little bit about US children there. What did you think about the US remake? And Nick, you were actually in it. You played Professor Aldus Crick, I believe. Have I got that right? So Nick, how different was that from the UK production behind the scenes?
Well, chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
What I disliked about the original series is that I've always been interested in the technical side of things. And it just appalled me. They keep saying, oh, well, that's what it was like in those days and we didn't have much money. There was no real care taken over making the special effects look good. It was all done on video, which I personally don't like at all. The American version was digital, but looked like film. And it was just superb, beautiful, technically beautiful. Very well photographed, very well acted by everybody. Thoroughly professional in a way that sadly much of the Tomorrow People was not.
Yeah, I did watch it and I enjoyed it, and it was a shame it didn't carry on because I thought it was it had real promise, and I liked their take on it as well, because you always I think as a fan you always kind of have a very precious idea of what the series should be, but I actually quite like the way they did it. So,
but can I tell you what's missing? What was missing in my view, and that's why I didn't go on. The whole premise of the program was this breaking out, that young people develop these powers. It was a beautifully produced program, but the kids were too old in my view. They started at 18, 19, and they missed out that whole central premise of the program. And that's, in my view, my humble opinion, where it didn't quite work.
Yeah. I agree. They might have. I think they probably just wanted to move on and get into the action. I don't know.
whilst ensuring that Greg Berlanti never employs me again.
So, Peter, did you watch the American show at all?
I did.
What did you think?
I struggled with. It was nearly the Tomorrow People, but as Nick says, they were far too old.
Yeah.
And Jeremiah coming back. It never sort of flowed.
Yeah.
I wanted more aliens in it.
Well, that was another thing. We went all over the place, and within 3 or 4 episodes we were saving planets and people and situations, whereas the American version was one long plot where the CIA, let's call them, are trying to destroy the Tomorrow People. And that was the central plank of the whole series, really.
Okay.
I mean, I loved it. I was very pleased to be in it, very proud to be in it, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I really do think you're wonderful, Greg, Mr. Berlanti, sir. So if you want to bring me back something else, I am free, willing, and available.
So
reasonably priced.
So this leads on to almost the final question for this interview. But Karen on Facebook was saying, do you think they should do a UK remake? And if so, would you like a role in the show?
Yes, they should remake it. Not quite sure what Peter could play at his age now, but and the same goes for me, for God's sake. Yeah, it'd be great to be in it, but obviously we can't expect to play the same or similar roles. If we have to do character roles, rather like Nigel Pegram's Trap Warden or something like that, wouldn't we, Peter?
Yeah, but I'm stepping back from acting. I'm behind the scenes now. Never go front of the camera.
I thought we could find a silent role for you.
All right.
I can see Tomorrow People, the next generation, and then they often have to stop and consult the sage wizards of the previous generation, for advice and help and how to proceed. I think. So final question. I'm going to finish with a fun one. So Susan on Facebook asks, In the Tomorrow People, you had special powers. But if you could have any special power now, what would it be? So, Peter, what would your special power be, do you think?
Telepathy, definitely.
Yeah? You'd like to know what people are saying?
Absolutely, because they never talk. They'll talk behind your back most of the time.
And what about you, Nicholas? What power would you have?
Of course, I knew that Peter was going to say telepathy, so I don't need that power. I would like time travel, and that's going back and forward. I think it's fascinating to see what the world is like in 200 or 300 years and to see what it was like 200 or 300 years ago. So that would certainly be my favourite. And also, I could go back to the early 70s and turn I'm going into Tomorrow People and have a much more successful career.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, you could certainly go back a couple of years and miss out, and go forward. Go back a couple of years, go forward a couple of years, and miss out this whole pandemic business. That would be quite cool.
That would be good. That would be good. See it coming and say, don't. It's all the Chinese fault. Yes, you could do that.
Okay, well, it's been lovely talking to you both. Fantastic talking to you both, Nicholas and Peter. Thank you very much for joining us and giving up your time. I'm sure there are many Tomorrow People fans like me who are very happy and very excited to hear what you've got to say. It was lovely. So thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
And
yeah, it has actually. It's been great fun. It always is. I love chatting with Peter. It's always great fun to reminisce about the good old days.
Well, hopefully we can meet at an event again soon.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be running events at the National Space Centre and Brit Sci-Fi. Hopefully, if all things go well, we might well be live next year and in person, so we can all meet up.
I should be wearing a mask and carrying a bottle of antiseptic gel.
Just in case.
Just in case I meet Peter.
Well, thank you both very much.
What? Who said, Peter?
No, I get tested all the time.
Oh, you get tested? Oh, you've been tested? Yes, I heard about that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm tested.
Anyway, thank you.
Okay,
thank you. I'm sure we could go on and chat for much longer, but thank you very much for your time, both of you. So there we go. That was Nicholas and Peter, who in the Tomorrow People, the fantastic children's TV program from the 70s. And we have lots of other things going on as part of the Brit Sci-Fi, lots of other amazing content. So do check out the rest of the content we have over the course of this Brit Sci-Fi online weekend. And as I said earlier, the National Space Centre itself hopes to be open again soon. So please check the website because booking will be essential. So thank you very much for joining us. And remember, stay safe out there.